Good evening, everybody. It's another episode of Stickers and Scuffs, which sort of doubles as the Monday Night iRacing pre-race show presented by Remax Jack and Rowdy Energy for our guest, Stephen Ellis, and a rookie for Stickers and Scuffs, but no stranger to us, Mark Urban. How you doing, boys?
Fantastic.
Doing awesome.
Welcome in.
We're so excited to have both you guys. Obviously, big fan of Flashback to the Track that Mark is part of it, and you guys did one of these. I'm going to throw out the episode that you guys did on Mike Skinner. It was one of my favorite episodes you guys did. Obviously, for me at least, because Mike Skinner is one of my favorite drivers of all time. I don't even know why, but I think that the truck series really had to do with it. I didn't really like him in Cup, but when he went to the trucks, it was like that's my guy, right? So. Definitely, guys, make sure you check them out. Subscribe to their channel. I have some really good.
Got to watch the 2004 Paul Revere 250 review. That's
a good one too, actually. Yes. And constant, that's the thing that I really like about this is that we've got both of you guys. You've both been podcasters. You've done content. Obviously, Stephen for the hockey news, and Mark, you still, photographer, do all sorts of great stuff. And we saw you guys both at the Penny Series last year and multiple times actually. And we brought you both on because you guys are huge fans of sports car racing. And what's coming up in February is or end of January. Sorry, not February. It's the last week of February. Is the Rolex 24. Now, we're mostly known as a NASCAR-driven channel. So, what is it about the Rolex 24? We'll start with you, Mark. What is it that intrigues you?
Well, there's something about, just 24-hour racing that is so interesting. Endurance racing in general, a race like, and the thing people don't think about, so NASCAR is endurance racing. It's a one-driver endurance race. And people don't really consider that. 500 miles is a long time to drive a car. They're in the car for 4 hours. That's unheard of. Like if you even look at supercars, for a 500-kilometer event, they add a second driver because it's unheard of to drive for that long. So, but endurance racing in sports cars, I find so interesting because there's so many different strategies involved, and it's not just about going balls to the wall all the time. It's about, you can have a lineup of 4 drivers where one of them is not very good and they can still win the race because of the way they play the strategy. And I'm much more of a chess guy rather than a checkers guy. So I enjoy the complexity of the racing. I think this is really the big thing. What you, Stephen?
Yeah, like for me, it all started because I remember my dad telling me back in 04, like, hey, Tony Stewart's racing in this. And I thought that was the coolest thing. He was quick immediately. And I thought the Daytona prototypes at the time looked awesome. I know it's not the most popular car design, but I'm a huge fan of anything Daytona prototype. But it just like part of it was just how like the complexity of it all. You got in a lot of cases 4 or 5 classes of cars all racing at the same time, trying to do the same goal. And for me, what stands out specific with the Rolex is you do get such a high number of drivers from NASCAR, and you get IndyCar, and you get guys that you about from other sports. And there was a time from like 04 to 06, it was like just full of just like NASCAR, IndyCar drivers. You looked at like the Speed Channel list of pro guys to watch, and you get all these Indy guys, you get all these NASCAR guys who've done both, and that was really cool. But like in this race, it's compared to other 24-hour races, like Le Mans is obviously such a big deal, but in terms of like actual competition, I don't think there's a race that's better in a 24-hour span than the Daytona 24. And but I just like that there's the multiple classes. Like, the prototypes are awesome, but then you go out there and like one of the slow classes involves like Lamborghinis and Ferraris. Well, like that's pretty cool. So it just the kind of that mix is really fun, and you can't go wrong with it.
You boys both touched on it. That's what got myself interested, was the crossover factor with the NASCAR drivers, particularly at the peak of that. But then it baited us or me, and then as I became a parent, it baited my sons into it too. But it becomes a staple regardless of who's in it. We can't wait to watch that sort of thing. Simply, as you said, it's an endurance race like no other, and it still brings a world-class number of drivers. And this year in particular, if I'm not mistaken, it's drummed up a lot more interest. It seems like that there's a pretty sizable entry list this year for the Rolex field.
believe it's full 60 cars this year. And there was,
I think so.
And listening to Marshall Pruitt's podcast with Graham Goodwin, they were saying there was a couple teams on a reserve list. So that's awesome. Like there used to be a point where, they could get 60 to 70 cars every year, but the quality of entries, they just get better every single year. Like the worst, the worst teams, the worst drivers are nowhere like they used to be, where you'd get guys who the first time they've raced a car at a high professional level is the Rolex 24 and they're out there struggling. You just don't get that type of experience anymore. So the talent is just overall so much better than it used to be.
Yeah, that's really the big thing, I think, Steve. So 60 cars, they're capped at 60 because I guess that's all that fits in the pit lane at Daytona. Or else we're gonna have to start doubling up pits, which is gonna be very difficult for a 24-hour race. But yeah, it's crazy, like you said about the talent level and the skill level of the drivers now. Like even like the slowest drivers are still pretty good. And you have the gentleman driver factor. And back 15 years ago, when we talk about like Grand Am, obviously Steven mentioned it was very different. It was like 5 gentleman guys in one car together. Well, now it's like one gentleman guy, and then he has a Porsche factory driver in his car, and it's very different now. So you're just presented with like this incredible racing among 5 different classes, where I always tell people, if they're new to it, just like pick a car in each class and like follow those 5 cars, because you're going to have, if one of them falls out, you've got 4 more that you can cheer for. So, and the lineup this year, we talk about the 60 cars, there's no slouches in the lineup. There's no like, I can't believe that they're on the entry list. It's like, no, it's like, it's gonna be good. Now, some cars are better than others, of course, but like there are so many good entries that it's like you said, there's a reserve list. It's getting to Le Mans level. It will have more cars than Le Mans will this year on a track that's a third of the size, which is crazy to think that there's, I think, 25 prototypes and 35 GT cars. So we're a little concerned about traffic issues when we get down there, what that's going to be like, because Daytona is a very interesting circuit. It's like 70% of it is the oval, right? And then the rest is just a little infield portion, and then a bus stop chicane in the backstretch where they added those curbs, which will make, I'm sure that'll be very interesting. But it's so it's just a weird race, and it's my favorite race of the year. Like I think I look forward to it like crazy. I fly down next Thursday. I'm really excited. So it's going to be an absolute blast.
And to add to that, like to talk about the gentleman drivers, the guys who are basically paying to be there, they're not the professionals, and some of the classes it's required to have one. There was a time where it was like 2014, back when there was 50 plus racing, and that was a Daytona prototype team where it was led by Brian Johnson, the singer of AC/DC, which crazy enough that the guy plays in that band, but it was he got hearing loss because of racing and not because of playing in a band like AC/DC.
Yeah,
really strange. But like that team was like at best 5 seconds off the pace. They were so slow, and it's really tough. Jeff Gordon did a prototype race in a Wayne Taylor racing car, and slowest guy on the track in that class. And this is a guy who's a 4-time NASCAR champion. There's no slouches in this field.
It's interesting because I'm going to go. I feel like there was a bit of a lull with IMSA when they did that, because they originally had Grand Am, you had American Le Mans Series, they merged. Then you had it seemed like a lot of entries dropped off. It got lost in translation, but it seems like there's a real resurgence with IMSA lately. I'm very curious as to what your opinions are as to why that is, because obviously the racing is still good. It's great even, but some of the fan base was gone for a bit. Now you're saying we've got record numbers. Do we foresee this all season long, and even continuing to maybe they have to expand the field in the future for other tracks?
So I think a couple of different things. So this is controversial, but I'm not a fan of driver rankings, but I think
that's not controversial.
But I think the driver ranking system has actually helped. It's honestly helped, because gentlemen drivers don't have to show up and drive against 5 Porsche factory guys. They know that they're driving against another business person or something that's not a full-time driver. So it's easy. So because in the end, a lot of them just want to have some trophies to put in their office or whatever and entertain guests at the track because it's good for business. And that's why they do this. So that is definitely a big thing. And I also think that obviously the racing has got more expensive, but I think there's just more manufacturer interest, especially this next couple of years. Because with the new prototype format coming next year, all of the manufacturers are hunting for factory drivers. They're all trying to put racing programs together. And that's why there's so many cars this year. Like WeatherTech Racing announced another entry today. So they have 3 cars.
Oh,
now,
wow.
and all 3 of them are all pro lineups. So, and it's crazy to see GTD Pro, the new class, which we'll talk about after, but like explode with all these all pro lineups, because it's just the right time for manufacturers to be involved because of the new things that are coming. And that's a big thing. So that's definitely part of it. I don't know what your take on it is, Stephen.
Well, yeah, like a couple of years ago, we saw DPI and LMP2 racing against each other in the same class, and I think that was a good way of maybe getting the DPIs to kind of gauge themselves and see how that works. But the LMP2, that format that we kind of traditionally see is like a pro driver and an amateur driver, and you were getting these LMP2 lineups where sometimes they were good. We saw the JDC Miller guys looking really good, but you see other teams there that just really could not compete. And all of a sudden, when the LMP2 split and became their own thing, it seemed like that class started to die, but it's really seemed to improve. LMP3 is another good thing where you get a lot of pro or amateur drivers that are going in there, and you get some young guys with a lot of talent. I believe Oliver Askew's raced in that series last year, and the guy's got a lot of skill. He should probably race a bit more than LMP3, but it's given him the chance where he could continue racing and be in a competitive environment. And having that kind of that mix is really good. And yeah, we're going to have the new prototype class come out here in North America. And we already see the hypercars over in Europe, and this is such an exciting time. So yeah, there's teams that are using this as a, let's see what we can do for the future. And I think that's thrilling. Like, what are we at? Like 10 or 11 LMP2 entries right now, and we're getting really good entries. It's not just these guys just buying it for the sake of buying, which we have seen in the past. We're getting top ELMS World Endurance Championship teams coming here. That's exciting.
I think as you guys both just talked about, regardless almost of what your motorsport of choice, insert motorsport here, it seems like a good time to get involved. I mean, the Cup Series, you can kind of argue that some of the sponsors and it's just the age factor for some of the team owners that there's a changing of the guard there, but it just seems like a good time to get involved in motorsports and get you dip your toe in it, and you're going to be part of something. Like I keep saying to my kids, they're witnessing the changeover from gas burners to electronic vehicles, and just huge parts of racing that it's all just changing. So, I mean, it's a really neat time to get involved. I'm sure lots of CEOs and team owners see that too.
Yeah. When you look at it, like there's when you look, NASCAR's got a new car coming. IndyCar, there's obviously talking about what their future is looking like. Formula One's got a new car coming. Formula One's never been more popular in Canada and North America.
Right.
IMSA and World Endurance Championship, they're getting new cars that will shape the future of the class. IMSA's changing from the more outdated GTLM cars to a GT3 formula. It's kind of embraced everywhere, and it's all GT3, and it's kind of exciting there. So there's just so many of these things that are just exciting. It is a good time to be a race fan, and obviously it's been kind of tough with the pandemic. But I will argue that right now racing, we don't get Speed Channel anymore. Obviously, that was great for racing, and I remember that was my favorite things. I just finally got Rev TV, finally got a cable package that allows that. But you look at this, and there's never been an opportunity to watch racing on a regular basis like now. Like there was a point where Speed Channel, a lot of good racing could not be live because something else was on at the same time. Now you can pretty much watch anything you want, and that's really exciting. That there's just so many opportunities, both to be involved as a fan, but to also be involved in the sport in some way, whether it's through media, through mechanics, and just having all these different racing levels. It offers all these opportunities, and you'll see a lot of guys where there's so many one-off entries for the Rolex 24 where they're just looking for any help they can get, and that's how some people get their start in the industry, and it's really cool.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things that I was just say is it felt like before that the Rolex 24 IMSA in general was almost like you had a lot of the drivers that maybe weren't able to find rides in series, and they had a lot to prove. Obviously, we've seen like names like Zach Veach and Jack Hawksworth from IndyCar found a home in IMSA, and then you have the guys that this was their their home. Like this is where they make their bread and butter. Obviously, Wayne Taylor Racing, is there a better team? They've dominated the Rolex 24 heading into this year. So I guess a really loaded question here is, are they stoppable? Because 4 out of the last 5, pretty dominating fashion. They know how to win here. I know we said that they've got stacked lineups against them, but something about that team, they know how to do this. Is anybody going to be able to stop Wayne Taylor Racing this year?
Ganassi.
That's tough. Like it's again, like I remember I was standing in the pits last year, and when they won, I was talking to some guys from Europe, and they're like, so that's like what, how many in a row now? I'm like, it's 4 of the last 5. They're like, that's insane. Like how? I'm like, it's a race where so many different things can happen.
Exactly. Can happen.
And it has to, there's got to be luck on your side as well, because like I know some people like to think that like the race chooses the winner. I don't really think that's true at Daytona. I think it's true maybe at like Bathurst and at Le Mans. Daytona just doesn't have that vibe to me. Like you have to do everything right. And even in 2020, like Ryan Briscoe blew the red light in the pit lane, and they almost blew that race because of it, and they still won in the end. So it's interesting that they've been able to pull it off, and especially with the lineups they have. Like 2017, like Steven said, they had Jeff Gordon in the car. It was more of a GM sort of initiative for Jeff Gordon, and he wasn't the fastest driver in that car. But the last few years, like they've just had an absolute murderer's row lineup. Like Rossi last year with I believe Castroneves, like the reigning champion from the year before, like has been insane with Taylor and Philippe Albuquerque now, who's just. Is it Philippe Albuquerque? Do I have that right? Yeah, it is. I'm trying. It's Durrani's the guy I'm thinking of. Yeah. Yes. So another Philippe. So yeah, it's insane. And then going to this year, like their lineup, have they announced their lineup yet? They have, right?
Yeah. It's Albuquerque, Rossi, Stevens, and Taylor. Like looking at that, like Rossi's the weak link on that team.
Mm-hmm. Like unbelievable how like it's insane. So it's just there's something that they know how to win this race. And they have the perfect strategy every year, but you never know. They could burst into flames in the second hour. Like these things happen, right? Like they could get crash damage. They could have a slow GT car destroy them. Like things happen. So, but they've always battled back from adversity. Even when Jeff Gordon was in, when he left the pit lane in his first start, he ran into somebody, and they battled back from that, right? So it's crazy. Yeah, it's insane to think how many times they've won this thing.
Yeah, and like they've done it with so many different lineups, many different cars. They've won in the Cadillac, they've won in the old Daytona prototypes, they won in the Acura. But you look at how good they are, and you look at Chip Ganassi, and in one car they got Bourdais, Dixon, Palou, and Renger van der Zandt. Well, yeah, like
stacked.
That's
yeah.
And then the second car, the weaker of the two cars, Earl Bamber, Marcus Ericsson, Alex Lynn, who like if a lot of people don't know who that is, like he was a star with Aston Martin, and Kevin Magnussen, like. Oh my God, that's some of the best
Formula One drivers.
So like this overall is one of the stronger years we've seen in DPI. And the one name that I think is really exciting this year is Ben Keating with JDC Miller in the 5 car Mustang Sandlin. That's a guy who like this, I don't know, I want to say like just over a decade ago was kind of like just like he was a good gentleman driver, nothing totally like crazy, driving like the Vipers and stuff. And ever since, like this guy's faster than a lot of pros out there, and we've seen him go out there and probably should have won Le Mans and the Ford GT. We'll just forget about that controversy, the fuel nonsense.
Rules are rules, man.
Rules are rules. It sucks. It was cool to see a Ford GT racing in that. But then it looked like he's out there, and I think he's running 2 cars this year. He's running just for the overall win in the 5, but he's going for the championship in the 52, I believe, in LMP2. And he's out there just driving multiple cars, and we've seen that in GTD. We're seeing Cooper McNeil's doing two teammate cars, but it's kind of cool like seeing how versatile this guy is. And there's just like, is it safe to say the worst driver in DPI this year is Jimmy Johnson? Maybe.
Well, Ben Keating's the best bronze driver in the world. I remember Harry Tinknell saying that. He says the best
he's a super silver. He's a silver.
Yeah, he's easily could be a pro in like a GTD car. He could be the second driver. But yeah, Jimmy Johnson, I think he's made gains. I think he's gotten better, but he's still learning an incredibly high downforce car. It's something he's never driven before. Like it's
right.
And he's only doing it a few times a year. He's not like a whole season.
He's doing it 4 times a year. And he struggled last year. Like he binned the car in Daytona testing. He binned the car at Sebring. Like he's going to learn he needs to learn the circuits as well. But that lineup doesn't even need him to win. I don't think they have Mike Rockenfeller and Kamui Kobayashi,
And Mike Rockenfeller has been doing it for one hell of a long time.
Like he's an absolute sleeper. So he's insane. So I think that's actually a good point. I think it's crazy that a platinum driver like Jimmy Johnson, full-time IndyCar driver now, is probably the weakest driver in DPI. That's how good the class is going to be this year. It only has 7 cars, but it's going to be unreal to watch.
That is the beauty of this race when you want to try and get someone involved. I mean, there's something for everyone. As you say, you can pick a car from every class to watch. There's all these storylines. Like, not only is there a different car to watch, but there's multiple drivers in that car. And it's just something you can find something to invest yourself in for 24 hours and just get it all over yourself. It's fun to watch. And, we have Canadians in the battle too. Some NASCAR Pinty's flavor. Daniel Morad's back in the race for Allegra Motorsports. Roman DeAngelis, Zach Robichon for FAF, and Michael Grenier for Sun Energy One Racing too. So we got Canadians in it too.
Yeah.
Robichon's with Wright Motorsport now. So
he's not with FAF now.
No, FAF's moved on to GTD Pro, so they have all pro lineup. They've got Felipe Nasser in their car.
They're going to be good.
So
there we go.
Yeah, so and I think Grenier is with. I think he's with the 57. I can't remember what they're called. Windward. He's with Windward. Sun Energy One's not going to run the race, as far as I know, from what I can see.
Well, there we go. So, see, we're up to the minute facts right here.
Yeah, but like there's still cars to be announced. That's a crazy thing. Like it's going to be unreal. So yeah, we've got a lot of Canadian guys. That's a great thing about IMSA is like, even just not just with drivers, but with engineers and crew members, there's all kinds of people from Canada in the IMSA paddock, especially even in the 4-hour race on the Friday. There's a lot of Canadians in that race as well. Kyle Marcelli, a whole bunch of other people. So more Pinty's flavor. So a whole bunch of dudes. So it's going to be a blast. It's gonna be a fun weekend. You get that 4-hour race on the Friday as well as kind of to preface it. But yeah, it's cool, man. Like there's lots of Canadian engineers too, which is the big thing as well. A lot of guys that have come over. So I'm always, when I go there, like I still feel at home because I'm around all kinds of Canadian people and we always gravitate towards each other. So for some reason, I don't know why, I could just feel more comfortable around each other, but because it's like stranger in a strange land. But yeah, it's going to be good. I think the Allegra guys definitely will have a chance at pulling off. They won the race in 2017 in class, so I think they definitely have a chance to do it again with the Mercedes. I can't remember who their extra drivers are. There's so many drivers. I have to look at it.
They have Goats. They have Lundqvist.
Isn't he the reigning DTM champion? Don't they have they're the reigning DTM champion in their car. Insane. Like, so it's going to be like, people don't realize like how wild this race is going to be. Like the talent lineup is probably the best it's ever been. I'll go on record saying that. I think it's the best level of talent of all time.
Like we don't have like Tony Stewart, Jimmy Johnson, Kurt Busch, Matt Kenseth all in their peak racing, but we're just like, again, the worst drivers are so much better than it used to be. There used to be some guys that were just there was I think it was like the Dream Lamborghini the one year where all they did was spin out, and there's some teams that have been over year after year that have been not great, but you're looking at there's so much talent. Roman DeAngelis, he's running for Heart of Racing, which might be one of the favorites to win GTD, and like they got Maxime Martin and Darren Turner, who are both fantastic drivers in Aston Martin equipment. So it's pretty exciting where you can get Canadian teams. The 57 Windward Motorsport with Grenier and Philip Ellis, Russell Ward, I don't remember the other drivers. That's a great car too, and there's just the
defending winners. They won it last year.
And they that was one hell of a race, but I can't remember which. It was one of the Ferraris they're racing with. That was like not another full-time team, but there's still more teams to be announced, and it's pretty cool. Now the one question I have is, I know GTD is just GTD, but are we calling, like, is the abbreviation for GT Pro GTP? Because that just feels weird considering there was GTP, which
there was
a very very different car.
I think it'll be like GTDP. I think they'll put the P on the end, which is interesting. But we're still waiting to hear. Like, is it? I don't know if you heard, Steve. Is it going to be the same tires for both, or is it going to be different tires? Because that was a huge argument last year. Was they going to give the pro class different tires?
I honestly don't know how
I'll
they're
have to
going
find
to
that
handle
out.
that. Oh, one other team to mention, because Aston Martin seemed to be like just the car everyone really wants. Like they were really quick last year. But we get the return of Northwest AMR, the team that Paul Dallarano runs, and his teammate is Keating, who is one hell of an Aston Martin driver, let alone doesn't matter what car he's in. So that's another car that you can never really count out. They seem to wreck in a lot of big races, but they're fast in those races.
Landscape Paul's Cottage back in the day. Fun fact.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, obviously, we as novice and newer sports car fans, I can go back and tell you, I remember the Pontiac Rileys and the Doran, whatever they were called, and what are the Crawford, but I have no idea what these classes actually mean. So in your best terms, can we go through and you guys help us out for the new fans of sports car racing? Let's talk about.
How do you want to do this, Steven? Do you want to go first? Do you want to do DPI? I'll make sure you do LMP3. So why don't
right?
So you do
give me the class everyone wants.
Okay, so I'll start with DPI. So it stands for Daytona Prototype International. It's a top class, and the winner of DPI, unless all 7 crash, the overall winner will be a DPI. So there is an overall winner, but there's also a winner in each 5 classes. So DPIs are the fastest car, so naturally they will be the overall winner. They still award an overall win, but you still get the win in your slower class if you're first of your cars. So that's the first thing I got to explain to people. But yeah, DPI, they're basically purpose-built race cars. They're prototype race cars. They do not look like anything that races on the road. There'll be a few manufacturer cosmetic things added to the fronts to kind of make it resemble part of their road car. So there's Cadillacs, Acuras, and I can't no, there's no Mazda anymore. There's Cadillacs and Acuras.
I will add though, there used to be, it was funny because for it seemed like the car that looked the most like its road version, which hard to say, was the Nissan. It looked a lot like the GTR's like front end, which is funny because Nissan had like nothing to do with that program at all.
Yeah, basically. So so they'll have a little cosmetic stuff that kind of look like the race car. So there are 5 Cadillacs and 2 Acuras in the race. The Acuras are run by Wayne Taylor Racing and Meyer Shank Racing. And then the Cadillacs are Chip Ganassi Racing, JDC, and Action Express. And the 48 car that Jimmy Johnson's running is like, it's Action Express, but it's run by Hendrick Motorsports. Like, but last year it was funny. They were trying to they didn't say that, but then we got the Daytona and I'm like, there's a Hendrick Motorsports logo on that pit box. And like, that's Chad Knaus. So they're definitely running it. Like, yeah, like, I don't know what the deal is here, but yeah. So that's DPI and they have the best drivers in the world. Mostly all platinum ranked lineups, guys that have done this for years. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be a great class to watch, and they are stupid fast. How fast do they lap around there? It's like
131s, I believe.
Yeah, really fast.
They're 3 seconds quicker than the P2s, but like the drivers, like the worst DPI drivers are better than pretty much most of the P2 guys. When we're talking about pros and these and platinums and gold, like these are the guys who get paid to race, which is different than the amateurs.
Mm-hmm. So why don't you do P2 and P3, and then I'll do the GT classes.
So P2, this one's kind of straightforward. All the cars are kind of the same. They're all Orco 7s. You could race other things, like there's the Delara, there's the Ligier, but the Orcas are the way to go. There's 2 entries that are under the name of Oris 01, and they're the G-Drive cars, but they're just rebranded because I believe Oris, it's like a limousine company.
Oris is a Russian limousine company that makes armored limousines.
So that's when I think of LMP2s, that's what I think of, high performance race cars. So it's kind of the drivers are they have to have pro drivers and they have to have amateur drivers. Is it at Daytona they need 2 amateurs or
gotta have two silver or lower, and you could have 2 pros, but only one of them can be platinum. The other one has to be gold.
So yeah, so there's pretty good drivers in this, like the Dragon Speed car,
real life Gran Turismo, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So like just to put in perspective how good some of the talent is in here. One of the Dragon Speed cars, one of the favorites to win LMP2, has Colton Herta and Pato O'Ward in the same car. Like that's and Devlin DeFrancesco. Like that's not a weak lineup there.
No.
So
or Canadian content that we forgot, Devlin DeFrancesco.
Devlin DeFrancesco. Yeah. Jones Soda, man.
Yes.
Jones Soda.
Yeah.
Yes.
John
Sorry,
Frano and
definitely.
the Tower Motorsport team, like in
Oh,
terms
that's
of the
right,
full
yeah.
time. In terms of the full-time entries, that's a good one. And they got a really good driver this year, Louis Delachaz, who there was some F1 interest there a couple of years ago. And not a lot, but he's raced LMP1s. Like, this is a pretty good driver. And so like this is a good mix of like some of these guys are pretty high-end drivers, Ryan DL, for example, but there's a lot of them here where they're supplying the rides, and LMP2 is a really good mix where you could still go really fast, and it's not out of the question that one could potentially get on the podium. Unlikely, but it's not unheard of. In 1 year in Le Mans, LMP2 almost won the overall race, which was like unbelievable to think. But yeah, it's really good teams here. Most of these teams kind of run in Europe. You look at United Autosport, that's a really strong team in Europe. You got Aero Motors or High Class Racing, Dragon Speed, G Drive. These are teams that have made kind of this really good impact over there and coming here. LMP3 is actually a pretty funny class. I think the question was any of them going to finish the race last year?
They all did.
They
didn't cause a single accident. We had like pools going in the media room, and they didn't cause a single incident. They minded their own business, and
there was a lot of single cars. There were a lot of single car spins, but they were just not bothering anybody else. This is more of the amateur ones. You will get some of the more slower drivers, and it's a little more cost effective. So someone who's just the guys who are not quick enough to be racing competitively in LMP2 go here and they do really well. One example is John Bennett. He works with the former NASCAR driver Colin Brown, which now seems like 55 years ago. When Colin Brown started in this, he was racing for a team was like something 16, and it was like the whole idea.
16. Go watch our interview on Flashback to the Track with Brad Coleman, because he talks about it, because they were all under 20 except the gentleman guy who was like 60 years old.
I'm under 16. But like that was pretty fun back then, and but now he's been a really successful prototype guy ever since. And but there's a lot of the amateur guys there, and in terms of off the top of my head, I believe Garrett Grist, who's not bad actually. He's got almost a podium in every single race he's done in IMSA. There's Ore Fidani. He races. I don't remember, but I think he's teaming with Kuno Whitmer.
AWA Racing has moved up. They're out of Toronto, so they've moved up to LMP3 in WeatherTech from the Pilot Challenge Series.
So and this series has got some pretty good teams in. You got Performance Tech Motorsports, which was competitive for a little bit in LMP2. You've got Andretti Autosport. That's a pretty solid name. Gabby Chavez is on that team. You've got Riley Motorsports, which Riley, obviously the guys who made the most successful Daytona prototypes, and Core Autosport, which is they've had success kind of at every level. So this is not a weak class, and they're a little slower than LMP2s. They were, in theory, they could go faster than the GTLM cars last year, but most of them didn't come close to it really. But they're faster, I believe, still than the GTDs. But it's you typically aren't going to get.
They are, it's a skill thing, really. Like we would find last year that like the LMP3s, like they would catch the GT cars again on the straightaway, but then if the pro is in the GT car, when they get to like a complex of corners, they'd usually be in the way. You see it a lot in the ELMS in Europe. They tend to really be in the way a lot over there. But it's all LMP3 is designed as a stepping stone to LMP2. Get yourself some experience in a downforce car that's inexpensive. The price difference between running a P3 to a P2 program is like in the 7 figures in difference in price. So it's a lot more cost effective, and it gets you that experience. So you basically can go from like a radical to an LMP3 to an LMP2 and so on.
Okay.
So
we've seen Anthony Simone's run LMP3s. Not in the top IMSA, but it was brought in. Part of it was to let's just kind of bolster, like make the more cars in the field, because there was kind of a couple years the car count wasn't great, and there was going to be a lot of interest in this. But then it became this thing where it's like, you know what, there's something to this, and this is supposed to be a stepping stone both for the pros and the amateurs. But then you get guys like Wal Barbosa, one of the best prototype drivers that we've seen in the last 20 years running this. Like, you get good drivers there. So it's always a fun class to watch. Whether sometimes, again, not the greatest driving standards. I'm afraid anytime they're in front of anybody coming into the bus stop, but they serve their purpose, and it's cool to see those guys having fun out there.
Yeah, so when it comes to the GT classes, so we'll start. So there's a new one this year. So it used to be GTLM, now it's GTD Pro. So there's GTD and GTD Pro. So I'll start with GTD. GTD is a Pro-Am class. So you have to have, for the Rolex, we'll just start with just the Rolex. You have to have 2 amateur drivers and 2 pro drivers. or you have to have minimum 2 amateurs. You can have 4 amateurs if you want, but you have to have minimum 2. So either bronze or silver ranked, and then you can have 2 pros, gold or platinum. And so that's how that class works. Usually it's a pay to play type class. Amateurs are bringing money. Teams are allowed a certain amount of manufacturer support. Usually it comes as being a customer. You buy the car from Acura. They provide a certain amount of support to you. The engineer comes and plugs his laptop into your car and gives you data, however that works. Same thing with Mercedes, all the different cars. The cars you'll see in that are, because they're not all the same. You'll have Lamborghini Huracan, Mercedes, AMG GT3, the Aston Martin Vantage, Lexus RCF, Acura NSX. Am I missing any, Steven? Porsche 911.
Yep.
GTR. Am I missing any? That
sounds about right.
Audi R8, but I don't think there are any. For Daytona.
It's weird. Like Audi, some years are the best car at this track. Other years, it's like a forgotten relic of time.
Yeah, lots of Lambos this year. Lots of Mercedes. The Mercedes, they say, is the easiest car to drive for someone learning. So that's why a lot of gentlemen guys buy them. It's a front engine car, so apparently it's a little easier to drive. I'm not a race car driver though, so I don't know. That's just what I've heard. So, and that GTD Pro is exactly the same car, but the only difference is the lineup. You're going to have all pro lineup. You can have as many pros as you can have amateurs if you want, but you can have 4 platinum drivers. Most teams are doing a 3 driver format, which is common for a factory program. To not have a 4th, just have 3. So that's common. If you watch 24 Hours of Spa, you're only allowed to have 3 in the pro class. Same with Le Mans. You can only have 3. So most will do it that way. All their drivers are from Europe. They're all used to that. And that's basically the only differences between the class. They might have different tires. I'm not sure how that's going to go. That was a sticking point last year, big bit of discussion. Do you give them tires to make them faster? But the difference is supposed to be the driver ranking, is that you have better drivers, so they should be faster. But we'll see if
same tires according to.
So they're gonna have the same tires. So the only difference is the drivers. They should be faster because the drivers are better. I'm sure there's a few guys in the regular GTD class who are going to expose them a little bit.
There is different BOP though.
Okay, so that leads us. We should talk about that after. So now you're wondering, how do all of these cars from different makes compete against each other equally? Well, IMSA goes in and they tinker and they say you can have less horsepower and you can have more downforce and you can have this and you can have that, and we'll make it equal. And I'm air quoting if you're listening. So it's never really truly equal because it's so hard to make it perfectly equal. But they do their best. So they try to make it as equal as possible by balancing the cars out that way. They take fuel capacity away from certain cars, add horsepower to certain cars. There's different ways they can do it to make it fair. So,
and to add to that, when you look, the roar before the 24, you'll get teams that are really good. Like, darn, we are 8 seconds off the pace. We don't know why.
They don't do it as much as they used to. No. That test, they don't sandbag as much as they can. Because it's very easy to see that someone is sandbagging.
Yes.
But they try. That still is an attempt to sort of do that, to not show your hand, especially when the race is the next week. There's also a qualifying race the week of the Roar, because why not have 100-minute qualifying race to decide the starting lineup for a race where starting position doesn't matter at all because it's 24 hours long?
They're bringing it back this year?
Yes, it's on Sunday and it's at 1 p.m. It's up against an NFL playoff game.
I'll be asleep.
So that'll be fun.
I'll be missing it. I'll just finish my 24-hour race at Daytona. So I will be.
So there is a 100-minute qualifying race where everyone will drive around, not race at all, hopefully not wreck their race car. And that's basically how it'll go. So
yes, I remember this. It
was brutal. Last year was brutal. Yes. And it was raining at the beginning.
Yes, it was.
Drove around and I was out in the horseshoe and I'm like, no one's gonna race. And they did.
I remember watching it from last year. Now knowing that you were out in there. So obviously we could go on for hours. Yeah.
I just got to know one more thing. Do you stay up, Mark? Do you do the whole thing or do you have a nap?
I've never slept during it. Not even for 5 minutes. I've never slept during it.
Right on.
I don't want to miss something. I know as soon as I lay down under the desk to have a nap, one of my cars will crash or something.
Right.
So I have to be ready to go.
And his TikTok is awesome. His TikTok is awesome when it comes to you get to kind of see all the behind the scenes stuff.
I'm
Although
gonna do an update. I'm gonna do an update on TikTok every single hour of the race, so you can like
Perfect.
watch like the descent of like into madness of like being up for 40 hours. But
Yeah.
and here's the best part is I'm running the 5K foot race the morning of the,
I saw
the
you
race
said
at the track.
nice,
So,
attaboy.
like, yeah, so it's gonna be a blast. I'm really looking forward to it.
How many
So-
energy drinks do you have to go through to make it?
I'm gonna try and do less this year. So usually I have like 5 Red Bulls and coffee all night. I'm gonna try and do like way less caffeine and hopefully, and I'm gonna try and eat healthy because usually like I'm like, oh, there's no calories during the Rolex. You can eat whatever you want.
Mhm.
And I think that eating cookies and all that crap all day doesn't help.
No.
So I think I'm gonna try and eat healthy this time and not have so much caffeine.
It'll button hook you in the long run, right?
Exactly. That's the thing is you crash real hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll kick
So-
you right in the ass for a while and then punch you in the face later.
That's the thing. And it's weird. Like when you're up for that long, you kind of like there's sort of different phases that you go through where things seem like they maybe didn't happen or seem really surreal to you. Like,
Yes.
like I remember, so last year I was in the pits at like 4:30 in the morning and I like made coffee at the Keurig machine with Cody Ware from Rick Ware Racing. And I thought that was just really weird. I was like, this is so strange. Like, you know, and then when you get to like 6 a.m., you get really tired at 5, you want to die. You're like, I'm not going to make it. And then at 6, you're walking around and you feel great. And then
Mhm.
you're like, I've seen two sunrises and I haven't slept. And then by like noon, you're like, I'm never going to sleep again. I feel amazing. Like I didn't go to bed last night. I should do this more often.
Yeah.
You know, like because like I don't need to sleep ever again. And
Yeah.
then at like 6 p.m. when everything's done and you finally get back to the Airbnb, you die. Like you just
Yeah.
Wait, so
usually
how-
like 13, 14 hours sleep and then like you're up and you're good to go. But it's
how-
fun. I highly recommend it. Stay up for the whole thing. Don't sleep.
How busy is like the media center? Like when does it start getting busy in there?
A lot of people leave. So a lot of people will leave around like 10 or 11 and they'll come back in the morning. And photography groups and agencies will all work in shifts usually. So it's like, okay, you're off from 2 a.m. until 8, go to the hotel, have a nap. And I'm work by myself, so I don't do that. I just stay there the whole time. Like there's no point in leaving and like I don't want to
Yeah.
go have a nap. So yeah,
True
it
enough.
gets pretty quiet over the night period. It's usually just the diehards. It's like me, Jamie Price, Alex Wong, Al will be there. So there's a few people that'll stay for the whole thing. But most people tend to leave and come back. But nah. The nighttime is where like the crazy stuff tends to happen.
It
Yeah.
is.
So that's where
It
people
is.
break down, and that's when you need to be available, you know, in case something happens. So especially when you're telling a story. So yeah, but enough about my staying up for 40 hours. We should continue teaching people about the Rolex 24.
Oh, I'm jealous. I've never stayed up that late. I've also never been to the race in person, but it was
No.
there was hope maybe this year, maybe next year. We'll see. Yeah, it's a little different when you've got like work the next day in person and you can't just stay up all night.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, but I don't fly back. I booked that Monday night flight back at like 6:30 at night. So
Ah,
Which is
there
really
you
smart.
go.
Very
sleep
smart.
you
until
go.
noon
There
and then
you
fly home. Yeah.
For sure.
This is the thing is that obviously it isn't like any other race. I mean, we go to Graydon, we go to Penny's races. They're about what, 2 hours max,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
24 hours. I can't imagine having the energy. At the
Very
end
important question. Very important question. This all that matters. What time's the photo meeting at?
Photo meeting is Monday, the 24th at I want to say 4 p.m.
That's
It's
way
kinda-
better.
It's got an email about today. No, there's one on Thursday for the Roar. So like a week in advance, and they're all by Zoom again.
just for reference, who people don't know, photo meetings suck. When they're like, hey, let's have it at 7 in the morning. Oh, and by the way, like there's no interesting on track action for like 4 hours. And those are just not fun, especially when
No.
you don't stay at the track.
They're the worst at Sebring, the Super Sebring weekend. They're like, the photo meeting's at 6:30 in the morning, and like your race is at noon, and you're like, great. So I have to show, and the WEC you have to go every single day.
Well, see now,
Ooh.
oh, so that sucks.
That's a grind.
Yeah, they
It sucks. But you have to get up that early to get to Sebring and get through traffic and all this. It's
No.
like, you're getting there at 7 anyway. Because people, when they say a 24-hour at Daytona, they're like, well, that's not so bad. It starts at 1:30. It's like, yeah, but I got to the racetrack at 8. Like I didn't get there at 1. Like I was the same thing with Le Mans. So Le Mans starts at 4, but you have to get to the track by 7 to beat the traffic. That's what I hear anyway. So you're there for 9 hours before the race even starts.
Oh man.
Right? And there's all, if you're a photographer, there's all kinds of pre-race stuff that happens, right? You got to
Mhm.
get all the photos. So last year was easy. There was no fans allowed in the paddock. So we didn't have to do any VIP photos or anything like that. This year will be normal again, likely. I mean, a little bit restricted, but still, like, you're taking photos by the car, you have the autograph session, you have all these different things that happen in the morning sort of leading up to it. And this year, luckily, it starts at 1:40, so it's a little bit earlier. Last year it didn't start till 3, so it's a little bit more difficult because you had to wait around longer. So that's why I was like, don't do that foot race at 7 a.m. I'm like, yeah, but I have to be at the track at 8 anyway. So I might as well go run a 5K and then go have a shower in the camping and then go to the track. You know, it's like, what's the big deal? So
that just sounds exhausting.
So we need a 24-hour race at Mosport. There we go.
There we go. That's what we need. Yeah.
They have no lights, but hey, there'll be enough.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's darker than old hell, but it'd be
Who needs
awesome.
lights?
Well, at Daytona, they only turn the lights on 30% for the Rolex. So they don't turn the lights on the banking all the way on. They're only 30%.
Oh, do you
It's
remember
true. The
one
lights
year-
aren't stickers on those cars.
No,
Yeah, they're real.
Do you remember there was a couple years ago when they raced in the rain and everyone had like the flashing lights that were just like horrible, like just watching on any camera angle was just awful. I don't remember what year it was. It may have been the year Jeff Gordon ran, and it's like even like the broadcast, like, yeah, this is brutal. Like and they eventually, I don't know if they changed the rules, but like this doesn't seem like the flashing lights are as obnoxious as they used to be. But like in the rules, like with IMSA, it's like if it's even a little bit damp, they gotta follow like the rain rules, and it's like you'll just get just flashing lights that are just so hard to look at, and it's hard for broadcasts to do racing at night. It seems like they've done a lot better. Back in I remember for the longest time where you couldn't watch any of it at night, and
Speed would always cut the footage.
But now
they'd only go to like midnight, then you came back at 7 a.m. or whatever. Yeah.
And they'd
Now
show
they
you
just have-
like a highlight package, and that's all you could see.
But now they just have one camera guy up at the top that just does it the whole time. He's
And
great.
Rooftop Ray.
Yeah, exactly,
Rooftop Ray.
And that's from IMSA themselves putting that on, right? So, I mean, I think last year, I don't know. I don't think I watched all the way until like 3 a.m., but I'm pretty sure they had commentary at least most. I don't know if they had it all.
IMSA Radio will have commentary if it's all 24 hours.
That's what it was. IMSA Radio had it.
So they work in shifts. Yeah. And that's showing you're still watching TV if you're watching a stream. I don't think you can get the IMSA TV stream in Canada unless you use a VPN.
Yes, you can if you use a VPN.
If you use a VPN, you have no
yes,
problem.
you can.
So
that's what I did last year.
Yeah. So it's
there's some piracy on this show here.
No, I don't work. I don't work in IP law or anything. No.
But yeah, so it is on Discovery Velocity though, so you can watch the race on Discovery Velocity in Canada.
Well, we can definitely continue on for hours and hours and hours. But before we wrap it up, I know this is a loaded question for you both. Obviously, it's the most obvious question out there. Who is your pick for we could go each class, but we'll go overall win for the Rolex 24 this year. Who is your pick?
I think it's going to be one of the Ganassi cars. Ooh. Yeah, I think Ganassi hasn't won it overall since 2015. So I think they're going to do it. Either one of their cars has a great shot at it if they don't have any mechanical failures. So I see, one of their two cars probably do. If I had to pick one of them, probably the one that has 11 IndyCar championships.
That's probably a solid pick.
So,
Yeah, where the only like non-IndyCar driver is just happens to be one of the best prototype drivers, like I'm going to switch. I'm going to go with the 31 wheel and engineering car. I like, again, you got Conway, Durrani, and Nunez. Nunez just has to not wreck everybody. If you want, I actually have all my picks for all the classes. Dragon Speed 81 car. That's another team of IndyCar talent. I'm going to go with Core Autosport. That's just kind of my default for LMP3. In GT Daytona, I'm going to go with the FAF Motorsports, even though I usually would say Corvette. I just think that lineup's too good. And in GTD, I actually don't have an answer for that one, sorry.
I think it'll be one of the European teams. I think a Lambo will probably win. I think it's probably going to be TR3 or like one of those teams from Europe. They show up and they just hit differently. I don't know what it is. Those European guys, they just come here and smoke everyone. So it's going to be good. Regardless, you're
Didn't
going to
come all that way for nothing.
That's the thing. Yeah. Man, last year Robert Kubica came all the way here and he didn't even get to run in the race because his car crashed before he could get in.
Right.
That's
So
a
that
tough
was-
pill
that
to
was
swallow.
tough.
The crash before the green flag, really. And because that was a bit of a mess. I mean, we don't really we don't, like I said, we've gotten our education here today. I want to thank both of you guys. How can our listeners follow you on social media and of course your YouTube channel there, Mark?
Yeah, so you can follow me at murbanvideo on the same handle on everything. Keeps it nice and easy for everybody. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but I never go on Facebook, so don't follow me on Facebook or ask to be my friend because I probably won't see your request for a year and a half. And yes, and you can follow Flashback to the Track on YouTube. We've been on a break for a little bit, but we're going to record again this week. We'll be back with some new podcasts. Not sure about videos. We've been really busy with other stuff, so not sure how many videos we'll have for you this year, but podcasts hopefully at least a couple a month. So
Nice.
And for me, my Twitter, Stephen Ellis THN. I'm hoping to hit 10,000 followers soon by the end of the Olympics. I mostly tweet about hockey, but I will obviously share my thoughts on the greatest endurance race in the world. Sorry, Le Mans, you guys are not the best anymore. And well, at this point, it'd be too late by the time anyone sees it. But my Twitch account, twitch.tv/StephenEllisNHL, you'll see me come in 11th place at Monday Night Racing at Red Bull Ring.
He's calling his shot,
But
Nice.
I'm running a Red Dragon Porsche throwback paint scheme to when they ran
Beautiful.
Pro World Challenge Series in that car.
Well, you guys, this was a lot of fun. We got to do it again.
Yeah.
Chat for another big event. I'm gonna go off the board because you guys made your picks. I'm just gonna be like Jimmy Johnson. Yeah, he's gonna make sure that they win this year. That's what's gonna happen.
they finished second last year,
They did.
so
Yeah,
like,
They did.
they could win.
But and they were good at Sebring, but didn't they get disqualified for like a driver time error?
Yeah, drive time by a few seconds they were off, but again, rules are rules.
Rose. We've seen in the past where teams have been like 5 seconds over the or five. They missed it by 5 seconds, and that's it. Gotta follow the rules.
Wow.
Them's the rules. Thank you all for tuning in to the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. Thank you, Mark Urban, Stephen Ellis. We really appreciate you guys stopping
boys.
by. And keep it tuned to Stickers and Scuffs for more content coming soon.